shout out to our sponsors at IconBet. Open source, decentralized gaming, no deposits, play straight from your wallet. IconBet, made by the players, for the players. Ion Icon is proudly supported by Icon Nation and the Icon community. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Ion Icon. Today I'm very excited. This has been a long time in the making. I have with us Parrot 9. Peter and Lisa are here with me on Ion Icon, and they're going to talk to us about everything they've been working on from a UI, UX design perspective. We've seen some of their work. It's brilliant. Balance is just an example of it. But let me stop yapping on. Welcome to the show, Peter, Lisa. How are y'all?
Thank you for having us.
Hey.
A little bit nervous. This is our first interview ever, I think.
Yeah, for Parrot 9 it is.
Oh, really? Another Ion Icon exclusive. I love it. I love these exclusives. No, look, really happy to have you on. Excited, we're all been using some of your handiwork, I should say, and it's been sensational. I do talk to people even outside of the Icon community who have dabbled in DeFi and taken a stab at using Balanced, and the first thing they've told me is the UI, that aspect, that flow is just brilliant. So amazing work there. It really is. Love every aspect of it. So what started Parrot 9? What exactly do y'all do?
So the reason we started Parrot 9, and the short answer is that most software sucks. It's usually needy, it's slow, it's buggy, and it's invasive. I was using Windows before, and I got a notification from Windows Defender that they hadn't found any threats. And I just thought that was such an odd bit of design, because if there's no threat, why am I getting notified about it? And you just know that somewhere in that team, there's a manager who wanted to show off how good their team is by showing that there's no threats, but they forgot that the users just don't care. And so I knew when I graduated, I only wanted to work for myself, because otherwise I'd be part of that problem, creating bad software. And I think this became quite apparent in my final year, where we had to work on a self-directed project. And I made a fitness web app. And when I look back at it now, I cringe just because of how bad it was or is. And but at the time, I was obsessed. I was constantly tweaking and making little refinements, and it got me hooked. So after graduation, we wanted to try something quite big, and we worked on Audio Freaks, which was basically a more fleshed out version of Bandcamp. This later got renamed to Bubble, and we had a Kickstarter for it, which was terrible because we cancelled it within the first 24 hours. I think as soon as we published it, we realized that it wasn't the right way of going about things. I think if you actually search Bubble Kickstarter,
You'll probably still find it there somewhere from 8 years ago.
There's a very young version of me somewhere around there. But yeah, that's kind of
what sort of started it. But I think, after we did the Bubble Kickstarter and we cancelled it, we were like, right, to be able to actually get this off the ground and to take on the music industry, we kind of need funding to be able to do that. We need developers. We can't just do that with the two of us. So we decided that we would start Parrot 9, which was mostly going to be focused around web design initially, because that was still our specialty, because we didn't need developers to do that. We could do it ourselves. And the plan was to just be able to work on that over time until we could build up a big enough nest egg to be able to work on all these other products that we wanted to create. And so that was kind of the start of Parrot 9, and we've been working on it ever since.
Okay, no, that's great. Great origin story. I love it. And so obviously you've started Parrot 9. At this point, were you at all involved in crypto or blockchain or anything like that?
No.
It would have been around the same time. I don't think they properly overlapped, but yeah, similar kind of time, 2013-ish sort of era was, when we were active in both, I think. But crypto was kind of an interesting one. We kind of founded in 2012, 2013, bought Bitcoin when it was $50. Wish it was like that now.
Yeah.
But yeah, we at the time we were too naive. We didn't really look at it like an investment, and we just saw people using it to buy random stuff, but there wasn't really a use case. So I think we just ended up either selling or losing most of it and didn't really pay much attention to it for quite a while, until like 2016, 2017.
Yeah, we never had any intention to move into the blockchain industry. That was not our intention. Parrot 9 was going to be focused on doing enterprise software, because if most software sucks, it's doubly true for enterprise software. Like I've had to deal with it, and it's not pretty. So because I'd worked with a reasonably large enterprise before, I knew kind of the ins and outs and why software gets made the way that it is. And so I wanted to try tackle that, just because I feel like it's the easiest way to fix the worst software.
Okay, so and it's funny you say that. I feel everyone has those 2013. If you discovered Bitcoin early or crypto early, it was you barely paid any attention. You dabbled, and you probably lost what you're holding or sold it for stuff that was available at that time that you could only use it for. So it's funny that's similar fashion there. So tell us how you ventured into the blockchain space. When did it get serious for Parrot 9? How? And I'm hoping the story intertwines with how you discovered Icon, but even if it doesn't, then we'll cross over to how Icon came into the picture. So how did that happen?
Yeah, so in 2017, when the bull market kind of first started again, we had a couple of friends who were into cryptocurrency, and they kind of encouraged us to take another look at it. And so we started getting a bit more into the Bitcoin, and then someone told us about Ripple, so we really dove down the rabbit hole there. And then from that point, ICOs were the big thing, and we found Icon somehow, and it looked like a really solid investment, so we decided to pitch into the ICO. And from there it just kind of snowballed, I guess. Like we paid attention every now and then when they released the ability to stake from the wallet. That was the IconX wallet was probably actually where we really decided we were going to get into blockchain-based apps.
Yeah, because like we'd heard of the idea of P-reps, but we thought P-reps must be these amazingly like advanced financial traders. Like I'm thinking it's easy, or someone is like the perfect P-rep. But I just realized it's a community of people that with skills that are needed.
And yeah, for us, it really became solidified when the staking rewards became available for Icon. And so we were trying to set up the IconX wallet to take advantage of the staking rewards. And it actually took me like 5 or 10 attempts. I had to come back to it 5 or 10 times before I actually completed the sign-up process, because there were just little UX things along the way that just kept on stopping me, like the inability to paste in a password, which meant that I needed to have an insecure one, or I had to try and get it right when I typed a very long one from my password manager, which was impossible. And so I think just when I realized like how bad that onboarding process was, because it was the only app that was available at that stage that you could use Icon with. We were just kind of like, if this is the onboarding process and there are other people that are having as much trouble as what I am, and I'm quite technically capable, that is a big problem, and that's really going to impact the value of our investment, because if no one can use it, then the value is never going to go up. And so kind of from there, we found out more about the P-reps and how the funding process sort of worked. And the more we looked into it, the more we were like, hey, these software products that we've wanted to create over the years, like this could actually help us get them off the ground and be able to fund them in it. Like because of the low fees, because of the reward structure, everything just kind of clicked, and it just made so much sense. And so we were like, all right, we're going to register as a P-rep, and it's just kind of, going from there.
Snowballed from there. Yeah, so our first kind of foray into the Icon world was our article with, I can't remember what the title was. It's something like, the IconX wallet is preventing adoption. Here's how to fix it, or something like that.
Yeah.
Because, you can have the world's best technology stack, but if the interface is too complex to use it, no one's going to care, because they're just going to find something else that is usable. And so what we want to do is, we know Icon has great technology. Like all you have to do is look at BTP and LFT2. So we want to to pair the awesome technology with an awesome interface, and I just think that's what is going to give us the competitive advantage over everyone else.
Yep. Look, I really like what you said here. You know, how you forayed into it was obviously in 2017, attention to crypto. You found Icon as an ICO, you invested in it, and then all of a sudden you paid attention to your investment and saw a real opportunity as you dived into it. I love that because I have similar. Everything I'm doing at the moment is come from that. It's just going, you know what? I see potential. I have an investment. I feel I can do something here, whatever it may be, and it's so good to see that. So there you have it. You. I love how you thought P-Reps were, you know, these. No, but it's true. Even I would think the same, and it was only until you really get involved in the space you realize how spread out everyone is and how decentralized obviously everything is, and there's a lot of effort that needs to happen to coordinate and build and work together. Even the P-Rep teams, they're very decentralized. You know, Rhizome, for example, have got people across, you know, Japan, America, Australia, so it's quite a lot of coordination that goes into play to get everyone together and working in streamlining what they're working on. So
and I do like how highly specialized a lot of the teams are. I love the collaborative nature. You know, even just hearing Rob from Geometry talk, you just understand that this guy is like on a next level. He's just insanely smart, and it's the same with Galen from Mousespout and Dan from Ivers. It's nice being, or at least for me, probably the dumbest person on the team, just because they're so much smarter. It's awesome to work with these sort of people.
Well, so this is what I'm interested in, and I'm going off script here. So tell us how did the teams come together and create Balance? Because Balance is one of the protocols dapps you all helped design and worked on. And could you tell us the story around that, how that came to be? Because there's quite a lot of teams. Just some of the teams you mentioned, they've all worked on Balance in some component.
Yeah, for that because it was after the Icon X article that Scott hit us up directly.
And wanted to know if we were interested in creating a platform to be able to create stable coins. And we were kind of like, we don't really know what that would look like at this stage, but we're down. And he'd already been working with Dan at that point, so he already had Dan on side. And Mousespout, because I'd been working with different exchanges and stuff, they already had that kind of experience. So really it was Scott just trying to pull all the teams together. So he did a really good job of picking really good groups to be able to help build this product. So he managed to,
He's got a good eye, that guy.
Yeah. Yes, I'm finding through the interviews, his name always seems to pop up in some capacity of, putting people together, coordinating, or getting the right person in the right room.
I swear he doesn't sleep, eh?
Yeah.
I literally think this all the time. Sometimes, even I hound him these days, I hound him a fair bit, and sometimes he responds, and I just want to respond back saying, I feel you should be sleeping right now. This is the time of the day that it should be in the middle of the night for you. But he's relentless. It's great. It's great we have him on the Icon side. So, okay, so the team got together. Scott coordinated it. What was difficult about Balance? What was some of the challenges you faced? Obviously, you would have looked at many of the other DeFi products that are similar on other chains. How did that work? Talk us through a little bit of that.
Well, initially it was quite an interesting process, because for the first month we were kind of focused on putting the white paper together and getting the base website and that kind of thing up. So the first month I was basically just trying to understand what the hell was written in the white paper, because it made no sense to me at all. So that was probably the biggest battle initially, was just trying to understand how everything works. We'd never dealt, this was our first foray into finance specifically as well. So there was a lot of these concepts that we didn't really know too much about. But once we had the website up, I'd written the content enough times that I could understand things a bit more clearly. So from there, it was time to really start looking at what the competition was like, because it was meant to be based off MakerDAO and synthetics. The problem was that neither of them were that great. So we a lot of people like to be able to look at what has already been done and be able to pull things from that and put them into their own products. We had to start from scratch because there was nothing that had been really established. There were no good conventions already in place to allow us to do that here. So we really did have to start from nothing. So that was the most difficult part, is just trying to get our head around it and try to figure out how it would all work. I think, yeah, once we kind of got to the point where we had the sliders in place, that was kind of where it started to click for us. Before that, all of the numbers or the variables, they were just really hard to keep track of and work out how you would even think about it and how you would manage your position. But once we got the sliders and we were able to get the whole calculation functionality in there, it just suddenly made so much sense to us. So
the sliders are a key part to balance, because the problem with balance is that it's an imprecise experience. You know, there are a lot of moving parts that affect your balances. Like, for example, if you were to watch over your deposited collateral balance, you would, you know, watch it increase from the staking rewards. You would watch it decrease due to rebalancing. You would watch it increase from the network fees collected. So like, these fluctuations, it was what makes balanced an imprecise experience. And so entering like any sort of exact number quickly becomes redundant. So the slider gives the user the tool to support them against that limitation.
And this is interesting that you say, like, you didn't copy, you recreated. You went out there and everything was crap, and and you recreated. No, I think that's awesome.
I think trying to fit it in with how we designed the mechanics as well, it was kind of important to be able to create everything from first principles, because we were building it on Icon, which has like the staking functionality. It's got the reward functionality. Like, it just made it it wasn't going to be easy to be able to like copy from something else without it feeling inconsistent and like it's just kind of pulled there for no other good reason than because someone else has already done it. And so we, especially for something like this where we are designing from first principles, it's better to start from nothing and kind of be like, okay, what do we know is true? What absolutely needs to be here? Oh, we need to know the collateral, we need to know the loan, we need to know the risk ratio. And so we kind of put those ones there, and then we just kind of tried to design around it to get the full interface. But yeah.
But our North Star for when we're designing anything literally is we want to reduce user time and effort. Like every decision we make will go, does this reduce user time and effort? So I think that the balanced interface now is at a point that any additional element we add will add exponential complexity to the user. It might not look at the moment, but it's jam-packed, and it's very hard to add additional elements. So I'd much rather see elements getting replaced with better elements or combining down, just to keep that user time and effort to an absolute minimum.
I mean, even like we tried initially having tooltips for every section, but if you have too many of these question marks all over the interface, even just having that makes it so much more complex, because you're like, oh, I need to look at all of these things to understand how it works. Everything needs an explanation. If you need to explain everything in an interface, you've done it wrong. So,
and even like on the swap page, what I'm working on at the moment is to change the assets. So, you know, you might be going from Ballon to USDV, being USD. So I'm trying to get a swap button in there, but it's literally taking me weeks to get it right. And Scott's probably thinking like, what the hell is taking these guys so long?
It's just a simple button.
Yeah, it's just a simple button, but it's really difficult to get in there to make it not look confusing. And it's just a lot of trial and error. Like, it's something that I think I've seen some people go, with us, we're not these confident people that, you know, it has to be done this way or it has to be done that. We're constantly anxious, very worried people that
questioning and unsure.
Yeah, that there could be a better way. We just don't know. Like, when we're starting a product, we have no idea what the end outcome is going to be. In fact, like, we're just as curious as any of our users, because we don't know, and to say otherwise would be quite arrogant. You know, we just have to, we fail a lot. Like, that's basically our key, is we just keep failing and failing and failing until we get it right. So it's interesting when people keep congratulating us, because they don't see what we see. They just see this is, the 109th non-failure that
Yeah.
and so people are like, it's really good. You're like, oh, but this isn't right and this isn't right.
There are still a lot of things we'd like to do to make it better, but it's great that you do like it. But
yeah, it's great that people are loving
it.
But we're just always trying to improve it. I mean, we're probably the most critical people of the product, because it's the easiest way of making it better, like by constantly attacking it. And having the community give a lot of feedback. Like, we might not, we don't really reply to too much, but we definitely see it. And we are aware, and we're always taking on feedback.
Yeah, look, from my time even spending in hounding conversations before Balance launch, I've realized you're a bit of a perfectionist. So, and it's great to see, because your work shows that. So yeah, but I see it from your point of view. It's you've iterated on it so many times that all you remember is all the variations before you got there. So
yeah, we'll have to we'll show them in the case studies, because you see some of the early variations of Balance and you'll be like, this looks like crap.
First they use a DeFi product with this.
Yeah. But it's the thing, right? We've been doing this for like a decade now, and every time the first variation we produce is just as crap as the first variation I produced 10 years ago. The difference now is that I know that that's just a stepping stone to something greater, whereas 10 years ago I'd be like, oh, I just suck.
So what was and I wanted to ask this, what was it like the month just before launch? Did it, from your side of things, did it amplify or did it calm down?
It was exhausting. Because we were running the marketing campaign like on Twitter, and we had everything kind of like planned out, so we knew what we were going to talk about each day. But after I did kind of the first day or two, it became very clear that the Twitter threads were working really well. I'd initially only planned to have like single tweets every day. And so it became a thing where I was sort of writing out the tweet thread like a couple of hours before we were posting it, just because that seemed to work better. Like when you're under pressure to get something done in time, you can't procrastinate any longer. You have to just get it done, right? So yeah, it was quite exhausting on that side of things.
It'd be like 2 to 3 hours before I'd be sitting there trying to come up with a graphic, like, how do I like take this and make something that actually looks visually appealing? Really difficult to do.
So yeah, that plus trying to keep testing the product and keep trying to push improvements to make it even better, while also working on it was quite a lot. So it definitely has not quieted down for us at all.
In fact, if anything, after launch, I swear it's gotten more busy.
Yeah.
Well, it's good you mentioned that. So it's not OMM, is it, Lisa? Just before it's OM.
So it was actually the way it came about was Dakey was kind of like, we want to have a name that's sort of getting across that it's an open money market, like it's fair, it's accessible to everyone. And so I was playing around with a few variations for names, and I kind of got onto like, well, what if we could make an acronym out of this? And I landed on and I was like, holy shit, this is amazing, because it means that we can have a brand that's got a bit more character. You can get the spiritual side of it if you've got like the meditation and stuff. The problem was when you pitch something like that, you have to kind of give the background, which is, it's an acronym for open money market. You cannot tell anyone that is an acronym, because once they know it is an acronym, that is all they will ever see. And that is the only way they will ever pronounce it. But it is, it is meant to be
Yep. Well, all my videos, oh my God, no wonder I've been getting a lot of hate messages from you now. No.
My tongue, because I know I can be very pedantic about that kind of thing.
No, it's all good. Look, just for our new listeners as well, so Open Money Markets is a new protocol that will be launching on Icon soon. It is essentially a place where you can lend an asset and borrow another asset off existing assets that are at the moment on the Icon ecosystem. It will support a bridged asset of a stablecoin IUSDC, I believe. And what's great about this as well is there's this particular platform is it supports the ability for a user to move US dollars from their bank account straight onto the platform, where it moves USD to USDB or whatever the symbol is going to be for the dollar that gets transferred across. So it gives the users the ability to come into the blockchain space and then remove their money straight into their bank accounts as well, which is something that is extremely lacking in the crypto space, and it is a point of focus. It is happening in the background now. A few other protocols have got these on and off ramps, but either certain fees associated to it, etc., etc. So this is being built right into which is great to see. So what has working with been similar in the process as with Balanced, or is it been a completely different beast?
It's been completely different, I would say. So I guess a great place to start is like for Balance. Once we launched the initial website, we were working on the prototype. We launched an interactive prototype in June or July. So we had like 5 or 6 months of being able to design it and build it and be able to play around with it, start testing it. It didn't really get into the proper development phase. So like we created the HTML and CSS and JavaScript, but for Balance, once we actually started getting the product made, it was being done in React, which we don't do. So there was a separate team that was working on that side of things. And that didn't really start until about December. For it was kind of like, initially when we started it, it was kind of like we want to get this out in 12 weeks kind of project. So we were kind of working on like design and development simultaneously. The good thing about having worked on Balanced already was that it was able to inform how we design certain things with so like the sliders, you'll see that are in as well, because once we'd tested them in Balanced and everyone seemed to understand how they worked, it was really easy. We were like, there's no point breaking conventions. We would like them to still be similar products so that people can go from one to the other and be able to use them really well because they work the same way.
I think this is what we both view Balanced and as siblings, because what one learns can then get taught to the other. And I find it's like this symbiotic relationship between the two that creates kind of like a virtuous cycle of improvement, because they're just constantly informing each other. And if something can be done better in Balance, we can then take that over to And if something can be better done in we take that back to Balance. And I think this is actually quite a big competitive advantage for Icon by establishing these conventions. Because you think about when the internet was first making waves, every website was designed differently. Like navigation could be on the top, it could be in a circle, it could be down the bottom, and it set back the web years in terms of adoption, because you couldn't take what you learned from one website and apply it to the next. Whereas now you look at the web now, and it's basically all the same websites. Everything's in the top right-hand corner for navigation, logo on the left, footer at the bottom, all that sort of stuff. And so we wanted to do that with Balanced and and nearly let slip another project, but there's another project we're also working on that we're using these two to inform that. And once we have enough of these projects, it will just feel like this really consistent ecosystem, and that's what we're striving for.
Yeah, look, having played around on testnet with it definitely used to, after using Balance, it just flows straight into that as well. So it's good to see. Okay, well, I was going to ask, my next question was, what else are you involved in the Icon ecosystem that you're allowed to talk about?
Well, Bridge is probably the easiest one to go into first, because it is the on-ramp that we're using for and we'll be incorporating it into a lot of other Icon projects once we get the final pieces sorted with the payment provider. So that's kind of the only other one we could talk about. We do have one other one.
Which is kind of funny, because there's a website for it that's live at the moment out in the wild, and no one's managed to find it. So very happy about that. If I suddenly start seeing a big spike in traffic to it, we'll probably have to take it down.
I could take some putt shots. All I can think of is there is another site. I did find a website too. It was the Optimus one, and I noticed there was a lot of scrollers there. So if I was connecting dots, I would say I keep calling it Optimus Prime. It's not Optimus Prime. I know that. I got in trouble before. But yeah, anyway, I suspect it's that one, just given that there's sliders on it.
And
No, that one is less of a traditional finance one. This other one can't really go too much.
Okay,
into
no, let's not. I won't pressure you. I may come back and just sneak a surprise question that you by default answer, but no pressure. Okay, so let's talk about Bridge. Actually, I know I get a lot of tweets, messages, and Telegram messages wanting to know. And that was probably the point of focus for that from the interview perspective. That a lot of questions I got. So yeah, tell us a bit about Bridge, how you were involved, what aspect of the design were you involved in?
Yeah, so Bridge, we were doing all of the UI kind of UX stuff. It was an interesting project to work on just because it was kind of, we called it a Frankenstein project because it was taking APIs from Prime Trust and also from Magic, Fortmatic, to be able to sign in through the email. So it was just kind of like those things kind of plugged into what we were building. So it was good, but in a way it was kind of hard because we were limited with some of the things that we could actually change because we were reliant on some of their UI stuff. So a good example would be that for Prime Trust, when you're going through the verification process, like you would have to rely on their form fields for certain things, and they wouldn't allow you to customize the design the way that we would need to. Like we couldn't really make it our own interface on certain parts of the product. So there were some weird inconsistencies with that. But for the most part, it was a pretty good project. So basically, yeah, we were planning out the whole process for like how people would sign into it, how they would go through the KYC stuff, how they would, send assets, all of that kind of thing. So we were creating all of the information flow, the UI, It
was a lot easier to design Bridge, I felt, because there's actually some pretty good examples to build upon. You think of MetaMask is quite an easy one to build upon, and
even Fortmatic.
Yeah, Fortmatic.
As opposed to doing something like Balance, which we'd done before that, this one was a lot easier because we actually had something that we could now base it off. Like there is a good way of doing this, whereas with Balance, that was, we could kind of do it however we wanted.
Yeah, like I feel like Balance was easily the hardest project we've ever taken on, whereas Bridge was one of the easier ones, but just more drawn out, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, no, that's great. I didn't actually realize that y'all were doing that component of the Bridge asset. I'd heard it was a third-party asset. That it's or the SDK was a third-party one. I don't know. I kept hearing things like that. I didn't realize y'all were working on it, so that's good to know.
Yeah. So yeah, we've done that UI. We also did a website. We need to update that a little bit, I think.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that we're kind of like 70% happy with, like the Bridge website, but we just want to go in and just make it 100% and just make it. We just want to dominate the competition. We want Icon to just see. The end goal for us is when something gets released on Ethereum, I want people to be like, oh, but just wait till it gets on Icon because then it'll be good.
Yeah, I love it.
Whatever we want to have.
Excellent. So I think this is great because I know I heard this rumor. Now tell me if this is true. And again, this is one of those spontaneous questions. You are booked out for close to 2 years with just the amount of work you have on.
We haven't put a specific time on it, but yeah, we do have on our website that it's kind of at least probably this time next year. It's going to depend. We're at the moment trying to expand our team because at the moment there's still just two of us, and
we're getting swamped.
We're swamped. We're trying to handle all of the design work for Balance and all of the marketing for those products. And this other one that we still have in the background, there is a lot of work for two people to be taking on. I think in the last year and a half, we may have had maybe 20 days off. Every other day has been a work day. So it's been very full on. But
I'd heard this, and Rightfully so, given your work. So I thought I wanted to ask you, well, what advice would you give to, some a company or people who specialize in your field, UX, UI, and wanting to get involved in the blockchain space? So, what should they be prepared for? Because the blockchain space, the way it's evolving now, it's not just across Icon. We got CPS there, but various other ecosystems now have their funds when they give grants, etc., etc. So there's a lot of opportunity, and I don't feel companies realize the amount of opportunity in the blockchain space. And given you are, front and center working through it, what advice would you give to people around that?
The industry is hard to understand. It's evolving fast, and because of that, it's actually a creative playground. Blockchain and DeFi are only just getting started. I've seen a few people say that it's too late, that the DeFi battles have already been won. But I find, as Peter Thiel says, it's not the first movers that have the advantage, it's the last mover. They can build on the predecessors' shortcomings to create something better. You look at like MySpace and then Facebook, or Alta Vista and then Google, or BlackBerry and then iPhone. So it's, there's always chance to improve on what's already there. The other thing I would say is there's going to be a lot of noise due to market volatility, and love him or hate him, I urge you to read about Jeff Bezos, who told his employees to ignore the Amazon stock price. He argued that if you're going to feel 20% smarter every time the stock goes up 20%, then you're going to have to feel 20% dumber when the stock goes down 20%. So in other words, you're going to have faith in what you're doing for the long term. If you know something should be done a better way, then you're going to have to stick through it, no matter what the market noise is or the market sentiment is.
Yeah, so while the market sentiment can be quite hard to deal with, especially, if the price is down, it doesn't matter what you do on the product side, you're not doing enough, because people kind of will tie your work and the success to the price of the token. So it can be a little bit hard to deal with, but you just kind of have to ignore that as much as you can and not let it get in the way. But on the flip side, one of the great things about being in this space, especially in a blockchain ecosystem like Icons, is that you already have an audience. Like, you don't have to put a lot of work into trying to establish yourself and get your initial users, because they're already here. Like, for the first year after we started working on Balance, we intentionally didn't focus that much on the marketing, because we wanted to put our efforts into doing the product, because that was what mattered the most. But even without doing a lot on the marketing side, we still built a lot of followers organically, because everyone else was hyped up and talking about us for us. So it just kind of...
That word of mouth marketing, eh?
Yeah, it really helped, and it allowed us to have... we had a lot of people willing to help us with user testing, to create content. We had people writing articles about Balance just without us having to ask them. We had people... talking about us on some big YouTube videos without us ever having to pay for it. Like, it kind of took us by surprise.
We got on Ivan on Tech with very little effort. We didn't even realize someone had to tell us that, hey, you guys are featured here.
Yeah.
So, that's what we mean by the word of mouth side of things.
But yeah, it's really cool, because everyone, especially if you're working on some of these DAO type projects where everyone feels a sense of ownership, they will take that on and they will help you to make it better. Like, after we released the new website, there was this piece in there that I had been torn over for ages, because I was saying in there that Balance is fast, cheap, and easy to use. Like, cheap because it's cheaper than Ethereum by a long shot, and any other wording that I had there didn't really explain that the right way. But at the same time, I knew that if I was using the word cheap, that it would kind of... I didn't want it to come across like the Balance brand was cheap. And it was quite interesting, because shortly after we released the website, someone in the community actually pulled that up and was like, hey, I don't think this is the right kind of terminology to be using, because Balance isn't a cheap product. Like, it's a really high class product, and we shouldn't be using any terminology that diminishes that. And it was just really amusing to me, because I never thought that anyone else would be focusing on some of those little details. But that do have a big impact on how the brand is perceived. So it was that kind of thing is really cool to witness. But the hardest and probably the most important thing you can do throughout all of that is to maintain focus and a really clear head. Just because everyone will want to tell you what you should add to the product or how you should change it to better fit their own needs, a lot of the feedback may come off what existing solutions have done, which may not always be the best. For instance, we've had a lot of feedback for things to make it more closely aligned with products like synthetics or Uniswap, but to us that's kind of going backwards, and so we have to be really good at separating out what's good, what's valuable feedback, and what we can work on. And there's just a lot to consider, so you just really need to maintain that sense of direction so that you don't let it turn too much into a design by committee process, because then everyone loses and you just end up with something that isn't really that great and no one is proud of. So yeah, it's best to avoid that. Another thing would be if you may be like us wanting to come into the space, you may not have all of the resources to take a product from the ideation phase to actually fully launching it. There are always opportunities for funding. Icon's contribution proposal system is a good example of that. And there are also people open to collaborating. Like all of our projects have been collaborations. We're not developers. We're limited in what we can do on that end. So we're working with people who can take on that side of things, so we can focus on what we're good at, which is the design, the content. So yeah, it basically doesn't matter where you are. Like if you have some kind of skills that can help to push this industry forwards, the blockchain space needs you, and there will be people that you can find to work with and funding if you have a good idea to get it off the ground. So definitely take advantage of these opportunities while they're here.
What plans do you have what plans do Parrot 9 have for the future as a company?
As a company, the long-term goal for us is we want to be the world's best software designers. That is the goal, and we're doing everything we can to reach that goal. We're not anywhere near close to that goal yet, but I think, probably another decade and we might be getting close to it. That's the end goal.
Yeah, so in the meantime, that means for us is that we're like trying to hire people, because there's a lot of work for us to do, obviously, and there's still a lot more projects that we have behind the scenes that we would like to work on that we just haven't had the chance to yet. So definitely needing to expand and hire some really good people, ideally people that are even better than us, would be the way that we want to grow this team. And yeah, one of the goals with becoming the world's best software designers is we want to create apps that don't have subscriptions because that's where everything is kind of trending towards, and we just want to create an app that's good. You pay for it once, and
yeah, it's like I got a meditation app and it's wanting me to pay for a subscription. You're like, why? I'm just using it as a timer, essentially. Like, this doesn't warrant a subscription. I feel like there's a good market for just making software that people need to use that's not subscription based.
And usually, like, if you make it right the first time, like aside from, smaller tweaks and any bug fixes or minor feature upgrades, like if you're doing it on your own time and we're actually leading the whole process ourselves, like you can just release it when it's ready, when it's actually finished. So you don't necessarily need to spend the next 20 years supporting it and requiring people to pay for a subscription so that you can keep paying for that support. We want to have everything to a point where we have enough funding. We don't need to have these consistent subscriptions, and we just create software that's good when we ship it, so you don't need to pay for us to keep working on it.
Yes, I love that. I think the subscription craze is gone to new levels. Yeah, and your example of the app, why? I mean, come on, I'd just pay. Remember originally when Apple launched and the App Store existed, it was $1. You pay $1. Yes, well done.
Software companies that have like $20 bits of like things is a really good task management, or was a really good task management app, and I think they charge like $20 for it, and we brought it because we want to support that model of software delivery. But I understand that we're probably in the minority for paying such large sums of money for comparative to other software.
But in general, I think having worked for software that has had licenses and gone to subscriptions, like there are still a large number of people that prefer the licenses. They like to pay for it once and forget about it. They don't need to have a recurring bill that they have to think about every month or every year, that, they have to remind themselves, am I actually using this product enough to justify this cost? Or, it may be an app that you only need to use a few times a year, but is that worth paying for a subscription for it? Good one is Photoshop. I think they were probably the one that started it, Adobe, with their excessive subscriptions. But
yeah,
it just kind of went from there.
The gift that keeps on giving, eh?
Yep. So if for all our listeners, if you specialize in this field as well, and you're up to the challenge and you feel you can do a better job than Lisa and Peter, they want you. That's what they're saying right now. Okay, they want perfection, better than perfection. So
there's a good reason for it, and it's something that I feel is lost on a lot of businesses, is the value of design. Because you've probably seen us talk about it occasionally, is that design-led companies outperform the others. And the best example that I've seen of this is a study done by McKinsey. And for people who aren't aware, McKinsey is this American company that advises on like strategic management for large corporations. They're pretty well known. They've been voted like the best consulting firm for like 14 years straight. But anyway, they did this study where they tracked the design practices of 300 publicly listed companies over a 5-year period. And they collected like 2 million pieces of financial data and recorded more than, I think it was 100,000 design actions. But the results of the study were fascinating, because it was the top quartile scorers that experienced 32% higher growth and a 56% higher return to the shareholders than their counterparts. But it was the other two things that I found the most interesting. Was the results held true in all of the industries that they looked at, whether it was medical technology, consumer goods, retail, banking. There was no difference in the value of a design-led business. But the most interesting thing about this was that the revenue and return differences for the fourth, third, and second quartiles were marginal. So they in other words, that the market disproportionately rewarded the companies that stood out. And there's a famous quote in the startup scene that goes, if you're not embarrassed by your first release, then you waited too long. Yet every bug and every compromise to the product put these companies further back into the second, third, fourth quartiles. Adoption begins with ease of use. And so, on a long enough timeline, design-led companies will be the ones to survive. I saw a statistic the other day that said 40% of businesses admit to not testing with their users, and it's like they won't be able to compete with the companies that do. Businesses are often reactive to user complaints, but they won't be able to compete with the businesses who are proactive about them. So this is why we typically we hone in on the little details, because we want to be in that first quartile. That's where all the money is made, and you have to be at the top. Because if you're not at the top, you're just another DeFi product.
Yep. No, that's good insight. So thank you.
Probably went on a bit of a rant there.
No, it's great. I love a rant. So much info in this interview. Thank you. I know you mentioned your first interview, so it all went flawlessly. Good. And thank you so much, Lisa, Peter, for coming on Ion Icon. I know Icon Grapher was missing, but he'll be listening into the episode because he was very excited about having y'all on as well. So really appreciate y'all taking the time in your busy schedules, making the time to come on the show and talk through everything y'all do and how much of an impact and influence y'all are having on the Icon ecosystem. So thank you for everything.
No, thank you. It was a pleasure to be on here.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
It was our pleasure. Thanks. We'll chat soon.
Thank you.